Well, I'm just delighted that Australia on the world stage is out now. This has been a project of about 15 historians and international relations experts that has come together from a symposium that we did. And it's a interdisciplinary look at Australian history and foreign policy. And it's a unique book in two parts. It begins with a more conventional history of Australia, but it is conscious that that really is a relationship as well, Australia's relationship with Britain for the most part, or at least the most significant part. And then in the second section of the book, it looks at specific key relationships like the United States, China, Japan, Indonesia, New Zealand, the Pacific, and also some relationships people might not think of immediately, like Antarctica and the United Nations. So, taken as a whole, I think it shows readers how diverse Australian history is, how many key relationships Australia has had, and not only the forces that have shaped Australia historically as a player on the world stage, but also what forces and which other nations are likely to shape it into the future. Well, I'm not sure there is another book in the same genre, really. Historians tend to be sometimes a very insular lot who like to only converse with other historians and only go to history conferences. And so I think we're very purposefully interdisciplinary by bringing together uh, political scientists and IR experts and historians, and it goes across a whole range of genres, law as well. And so I do think it's a unique take on Australian history. But if it has a guiding theme, it's that Australia's uh, conception of itself, its conception of where it is in the world, and what its role is as a player on the world stage is not fixed. It's something that is evolving, and it's something that's negotiated by each new generation. So, as well as a look at the past, it's also a challenge, I suppose, to the reader to consider where they think Australia should be heading in the future. Yeah, well, we consciously decenter Britain in this book. There are still three chapters that are linked closely to Britain because it has been a important shaping force on Australia, but it's part of the story, but not the complete story. And so the first substantive chapter looks specifically at before Australia, and the reader can also think if it's even appropriate to use the term Australia because the history before it got given that name is so much longer by many, many thousands of years. And it also hints, I suppose, by the balance of nations we look at in the second half. Certainly, the majority of them are in Asia and the Pacific, if you sort of stretch that over to include the United States. So there's a suggestion, I suppose, that we're 2 decades now into the Asian century, and Australians should be thinking very seriously about how we engage with other countries in Asia and how we develop and foster those relationships and where they might go in the future. And also, do we have the understanding we need to really thrive in an Asian century? Are we as knowledgeable about our nearest neighbours like Indonesia as they are of us? And I think probably the answer is no. Republicanism in Australia is the main thing I've been writing and researching about over the last 15 or so years. And so my next book will be on the history of the 1999 Republic referendum. Working title is Republic Denied, but as ever, the editors have the final say on those sorts of things. I think the changing from one monarch to another is sparking conversations. The Queen had such an extraordinary long reign that unless you're well over 70, this is the first time you've ever witnessed the process of how we go from one monarch to another. And a lot of Australians probably are learning as they go, that there's no consultation about who we'd like to be. There were polls and things about whether you'd prefer William or whoever, but Australians are now seeing, well, this is the process. It's just automatic, and you wake up one morning and you're told, well, this is now your king or queen. And so Australians, I think, are experiencing this for the first time, and prompted to consider, well, if we're a democratic, multicultural society in the Asia Pacific, is relying on hereditary birthright from the United Kingdom still the most appropriate way to choose our head of state?